have with us here Dale Corlett and Kathryn Graham from Te Tumu Whakatatonga, the New Zealand Film Commission. Dale Corlett is the head of talent development, while Kathryn Graham is the development executive for the Rautaki team and the Film Commission. Now, both of them collectively have got vast experience in the screen industry, hailing all the way from Scotland and the UK, and of course, Kathryn in New Zealand, in the TV and the film world as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to the team here.
Kia ora. I don't know if I need this. Do I need this? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Use the mic.
Use the mic? Oh, because we're recording. Okay, kia ora tātou. Tēnā koutou katoa. He mihi nui, he mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Ko Dale Corlett tōku ingoa. As Sean said, my name's Dale. I am from Te Tumu Whakatatonga, the Film Commission. I whakapapa to the Wairarapa, so Ngāti Kahanunu and Rangitane on my dad's side, and on my mum's side it's Ko Te Rana in Scotland, and a little bit Isle of Man and Viking Norway in the middle there, which is why I look like a Viking Māori. No. So it's a privilege to be here today, and so we're going to have a chat to you about our work and what we do. We may show you some stuff on screen, we may not. So that's me. I'll get Kath to introduce herself, and then we'll get into a conversation. I'll come over.
Kia ora tātou. Ko Tainui te waka, ko Pūhara te tā, ko Kaiterani Ki, aka Kath Graham, and ko Ngāti Koraki Kahukura Iwi. My connection to Te Awamutu is my father designed the sculpture in the Rose Gardens, and our family come from Hora, which is was flooded to make Lake Karapiro many years ago. And I am a development exec at the Film Commission, and I work with the Rautaki team. And our reason for being is to create pathways for Māori to access both funding and development of their talents, whatever area they may be in. And we've been in existence for 5 years. The Film Commission has been around for 40 years, so about time. And my colleague, Te Okahurangi Waka, is currently at RIF, or our colleague I should say, talking about the Rautaki over there, so we're everywhere. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora. So as this computer is booting up and seeing if it can work, it may not work. It was just a little slideshow to give you some ideas about where the funding sits, but we can talk about it. So I think, have we got an hour or 45 minutes or something? Is that right? Yeah, about an hour. So what we thought we'd start with is give you a bit of an overview of the areas of work we work in, and the various support kind of funds and ways in which we work. A little bit of an overview each, and then you can ask any questions you want at any time, but if you don't have any questions then we'll kind of open to the floor, and then we can have a conversation with you about what we do, and maybe try and demystify the Film Commission. Is that useful? Yep.
Very much.
And if there's anything that you really want to cover today, please ask it, or if you're a little bit shy, then the person next to you might want to ask on your behalf, or we're just human beings, so or talk to Sean and get him to ask, or write on a piece of paper. Or afterwards. Oh yeah, and we're here afterwards as well, so we have one-to-ones as well. I don't know where, but we could here or something, or across the road, or in the cafe across the road. So yeah, we're here for a few hours anyway, so we are genuinely here to find out what you want to know. So, should I start? Talent development area?
Should I?
Or do you want to go?
No,
you go.
No.
You go.
No.
Okay. So I've been at the Commission 8 years now, just over 8 years, and I am the head of talent development. So there's normally 3 or 4 people in talent development, depending on what our budgets are. And talent development for the Film Commission is a department that's primarily focused on finding, supporting, progressing filmmakers. So writers, directors, producers mainly, actors as well to a certain degree. When we support the acting community in different kind of training programs and things. But generally it's the IP creators, so it's the writers, the directors and the producers. And in talent development we have a number of ways in which we do this, but we are we are interested in your projects, we are interested in the stories you want to tell, but more than that, we're interested in the journey you are on as a creative storyteller in the screen sector and how we can support you to get to the next level of where you're trying to get to. Recognising, if you didn't know this already, sorry, this is a bit of an alarm bell for people, but there is no end to this journey. Like, it just keeps going and going and going, and then one day you don't make films anymore, or stories, because that's the way life works. But so there is no real end goal, except progression, I guess, is our focus, is our kaupapa. So in talent development, over the years we've used all sorts of ways in which to help support people. The production side of it is probably mainly through short films. So we've had a number of short film initiatives and schemes over the years. Currently we have two, which one is called Fresh Shorts, which is your kind of new to emerging level. So you're relatively new in the industry, or you're still emerging and finding your voice in that space. And at the moment that's a $30,000 grant for a short film. And we have grants of up to 6 films a year. That grant has gone from about $10,000 per grant to 30 over the years I've been there, depending on what kind of budgets we've got. And it's ranged from, I think we had, when I started, 14 films at that level, and now there's only 6 because we've actually got a higher budget short film initiative. So that's Fresh Shorts, available once a year. It's actually just closed and we're going through assessment at the moment. 117 people applied, or 117 projects for 6. So it's not great odds, let's be fair, but you know, got to be into it. And some people in the room have actually had grants, I know that, through that process. The other production grant we have in talent development is called Catalyst, which is the higher budget short film, and that's at, I get this wrong, it's 100 plus, it's now $110,000, I think, yeah, 110,000, which takes into account the cost for COVID and all sorts of other health and safety issues that we've had in the last few years. Basically, that has a short film grant of 110 plus another $10,000 for a feature film or TV series development alongside it. The idea behind that is that you're making a short film, a calling card short, that's going to hopefully land at a major festival or somewhere internationally or locally where it opens doors, and then you've got this longer form TV or film project that you can start talking about because you've started developing it. Catalyst is for the emerging and mid-career level. So Fresh, new and emerging, Catalyst, emerging to mid-career. And so in terms of talent development, they are the two ways that people can make stuff with us, with our support, to help progress them. Then we have a raft of other individual grants and industry grants that are available for people to seek training, develop their skills or craft, go to a festival, present their work, finish their short film, they've made an independent one, have a mentorship or an internship on a production or in a production company. So we have a lot of small grants. They're normally up to about $5,000 per year that you can apply for, and depending on our budget, we have, you know, it's quite flexible sometimes. Sometimes we might fund 50 to 100 people through those funds, and sometimes it's down to 20 to 40 depending on what money they give us. And going forward, it doesn't look good. Sorry, the next year looks a bit tight right across government, but you know, what can we do? But the nice thing about those individual grants, and we can jump into them more if you want to know more about them, but they're very bespoke, so you identify an opportunity that would be really useful for you at this time in your career. You have a chat to us about it, we look at whether it fits the kaupapa of what we can fund, and then we can actually fund you. You're not in a pot kind of competing with everyone else. It's a very one-to-one kind of approach. Generally, it's for emerging to mid-career professionals because the pūtea isn't that huge. So you imagine if we opened it up to brand newbies, we would be inundated with maybe graduates or kind of first couple of years in the industry. So we have to kind of move the bar a little bit higher. That doesn't say we can't support people that are at that new level with those, but it just has to be more from an underrepresented community or someone from a community who hasn't had support before, and then we can talk about it from a more diverse and inclusive point of view. So that's a bit of an overview of talent development. The final area, we fund the industry guilds and organisations. So Writers Guild, Directors Guild, Producers Guild, WIFT, Women in TV and Film, Script Screen, which is a strategic partner of ours for training and development. And then we fund PISA, PASC, the Rautaki Fund, Ngā Ao Whakaari, so guilds that are set up to support groups of people and their progression. So what we really recommend is you do become a member of a guild, at least one. You probably don't want to be a member of 10 of them because it costs a lot of money. Well, it costs money, but being a member of a couple of them is really useful to get the information about what's out there. And they do come together a lot around the kaupapa of supporting filmmakers. So if you're not a member, you should look at trying to join one of those guilds. I think that's me. Okay.
Before I start, we'll just play a reel which basically has shorts from the different kaupapa short films and feature films that Rautaki Māori have been involved with. We might not have fully funded them, but we've been involved in either supporting the talent or the creators in some respect. So
here it comes. Good luck. Wonderful.
So, Rautaki Māori, there are only 3 of us in the team. There's our Whakahaere, who is currently, as I said, at RIF. There's myself, and then we have a coordinator. We have some budget that we administer just ourselves. We have $2.5 million for a majority reo Māori film, of which Muru, which I hope many of you have seen, was our last feature. Kawhawhai, which is about the Battle of Ōrākau, is currently about to lock, and that will be probably in cinemas middle to the end of next year. And we also, and then the one that we've just finished shooting called Kōpere, Kath Akuhata-Brown was the director of a couple of the shorts that you saw in there, and now she's gone on to her first feature film. So the other funds that we have are Tuakana Taina, which is our sort of mentoring support fund that we, and Dale is across that as well, that we give amounts of money to either companies to be mentored by more experienced producers or experts in business or whatever, or in filmmaking or in any of the craft areas. And we have that same fund can be applied to by individuals who have a mentor that they want to work with, and we see those tuakana taina as reciprocal relationships, not just one-way traffic. We also run funds alongside the main funds, so there's like early development fund. We have a fund that we also have a certain amount of money that we can support Māori creative teams. So two of the key creatives have got to be Māori to access those funds. You don't need to necessarily be telling a culturally Māori story, but you still have to have two key creatives that are Māori. And we also have advanced development funding that we administer, and what that means is that we're able to support people who may not be supported, or may, because of the pressure on the funds, may not get across the line well, it's not getting across the line, but that we just are able to support our people. And so we look at where they come from, where they want to go, and we take that into account and support them to where they want to go creatively. And then the Rautaki, we also go and provide a Māori perspective across other panels for like the Catalyst Fund, or we're sometimes asked to be on panels for some of the other short funds as well. And then the other way we support emerging filmmakers and mid-career filmmakers is through Ahu Shorts, which is the shorts process that Ngā Whakaari, the Māori Industry Guild, they have 4 shorts, I think, it's every year, with a budget of, I think it's like around 25k, and then you can do other ways of fundraising if your budget is, which lots of times is, above that. And I guess we like to work in a sort of different way to our colleagues, in that mostly we know our community, but that's why it's really great to come out to Taumutu or be over in Rotorua, where we actually can meet a whole, well, not necessarily a new audience, but we get to meet other faces in our community. So we really appreciate coming in and being able to talk to everyone, because we are can be told that we don't believe this in the Rautaki, but we're told that we're not approachable. But I think that we actually go out of our way to actually try and demystify that. But I still understand that it is hard for people to come in, and especially if they don't know anyone inside. And I think that that's the biggest difference that having Māori inside the organisation has made, is that we are the obvious face for our people to come in and see, and to and sometimes ask, questions, because so many questions, because they haven't had anyone to ask before in the same sort of way. I'm not saying that there hasn't been any Māori films that have been made, because there has, but we are making more now, which is great, right? And so, do we do anything else?
Do you do anything else?
Yeah, so I think that's about it really in terms of the Rautaki. But
2 seconds, just transferring something
just,
over. Just Phil.
Oh, yeah. On the way here, we had a duck.
Oh, we did have a duck. Oh, very sadly. The duck wanted to come with us, unfortunately.
It was like a short film, actually.
We'll be writing it, you'll see it soon.
And that was a bit traumatising, actually. But the car is quite damaged. But at least it wasn't a horse, right?
Good Phil. Keeping it light. It's good. Keeping it light.
I'm really good at morning.
Keeping it light. Okay, let's
What?
yeah, it should be saved onto that. You want to put that on there? I was going to just add, so a couple of things that Kath said. I think we're terrible at, we didn't use acronyms? Is that what I can't even say the word. I don't know if you did, but early development funding. Does everyone know what early development funding is? No? There's some shakes? Okay, so early development funding is script development funding. Now, there's a bit of a misnomer there. Forget the bit of early. It's just development funding. We've been saying for years, change the title, or change the name of it. They won't, I don't know why. But you've got people who are coming into that fund, so it's run by development production, not our teams, although, as Kath said, the Rautaki team are across it if there's Māori content, or they have their own version of that same pathway, or similar pathway. But it's basically for script development, for a script that, you know, obviously a feature film that's going to be made. We don't do TV development, that's not our bag, that's very much New Zealand On Air. So there's separate agencies there, but it's feature film scripts, documentaries and drama, animation, any genre, but it's for the cinema and streamers and those kind of platforms. And I would say most films that are coming in aren't at first draft, are probably third, fourth draft, like proper drafts, you know, not just tinker drafts, but, you know, we all do those. And, yeah, so most of the time you're talking 10 drafts in before it's probably first draft, so then, you know, you've got a number of drafts before you're there. So just being aware that that's where the bar is at. That's not to say you won't get through if you're a newish writer and you're giving it a go, but just know that the bar is quite high. And at one point, you're read externally and internally, and there's a whole assessment process that you go through with all of our funding. At that point, there's not as much comparing and contrasting, because you're just reading, individual assessors reading a load of different scripts and then reporting back to the commission. But at the final decision bit, that's when, you know, the road and the rubber meet, because it's like, we've only got so much boot here for that round, so which one should go through? And that's where that quality might come in and go, actually, these are more further on. This is a more seasoned craft writer who was able to get it to the next level. And from my understanding, and you can probably speak more to this, the key thing with any form of development funding is both the project where it's at, but more importantly, where you think you want to take it. Like, these are the areas we're working. We're working on the character development. We're working on the backstory. We're working on the core dramatic turning point in Act 2, because, you know, we know that needs work. Because those writer notes are the real indicator that the team know where they're going. And it may go in different directions, of course. But it gives assessors a bit of an idea of, they're not papering over the cracks, they know there are some issues here, because it is development money, it's not production finance. For development finance, you need a producer and a writer. You do not need a director, because you're not directing the movie. A lot of New Zealand writer-directors are writer/director, but at that point, you're not being assessed as a director, because that is not the point of that fund. It might be an indicator, actually, well, this writer's going to direct it, that's interesting, where they at in their directorial kind of journey, but at that point, really, it's about the script and the development possibilities that you want to explore. That make sense? So that's early development. The other thing,
And as well as we have in the assessment process, we have an international and a domestic assessor, and if it has Māori content in it, we also have a cultural assessor across that. Or if it has Samoan, we have some Samoan, or, you know, the list goes on. But we do try and ensure that if there is cultural content, that it is representative of that culture in some way, shape or form, as opposed to what we do get a little bit of, which is slowly, hopefully not so much, is people, producers or writers that call their character Hemi or Reikura, and then forget that they're Māori. We have that quite a lot. And when I first came into this role, I felt a little bit like the cultural police, and but it's actually changing slowly but surely now, as people realise that their representation of Māori has to be authentic, as opposed to just colouring up their screen.
And that's driven by audience as well. Like, authentic storytelling is the biggest driver for new audiences out there. That if you look on around the planet in terms of the streaming services, the amount of content that's out there that's from communities we haven't heard from before, or that's not in the English language, it's actually subtitled, and they're doing really, really big numbers. And it's because there's an authentic truth to that story and those stories. So one other thing, just to flag, because you mentioned Kath Akahata Brown, who's just done Kōpere, the feature film. So she made a short called Wash Day a few years ago, which was a catalyst short, so that higher budget. Now, Kath is a mid-career professional. She's been in the industry a good while, and she's been a development exec, I think, at the Commission, but certainly in Whakata Māori, the Māori TV, and other broadcasters and stuff. She's worked at all sorts of levels. And the amazing thing about Kath is that she's supported a lot of other filmmakers coming through, so it's amazing to see her journey now going into full delivery of her own feature. But it just reminds me that the short films are an amazing tool for people to progress. So whether you're making them with us and our funding, which is limited, or independently through 48 hours, or making your own ones and then getting into festivals like this, or Show Me Shorts, or wherever, it's a really, really important opportunity. I think we did some stats recently just on our funded shorts since 2014 when I came in, and 2014-15, and 80%, just about 80%, 79% of filmmakers that have made a short within that period of 8 or 9 years have gone on to make a feature film or gone into development. So there's quite a high success rate of people that are making those shorts that are getting into development and then production. It's much higher than I thought, which was quite handy, because I was trying to argue they shouldn't fire me. No, I wasn't saying that. But I was trying to say, look, there's an amazing opportunity here for shorts. We need to stay in this space, because there's a lot of debate around short films for many, many years. I've worked with shorts for 30 plus years, and every now and again it's like, oh, we want to go into web series, or want to go this or do this. And every time you do the numbers, you go, yes, those routes are really important, and we need to support them if we can. But bizarrely, the short film is still the single best calling card for writer, directors and producers to make work and show what you can do. The truth of it is, if you're a separate writer, they're useful. If you're a director, they're really, really useful. They're like a short, a moving image business card for your work. For a producer, they are kind of useful, and as a team, very useful for the producer. But the truth is, the producer is going to benefit from it. The writer, single writer, is probably going to benefit more if they're going into feature films or TV, writing those ideas and those synopsis and those log lines and developing a lot of ideas in that space. Because if you're not a writer-director, if you're just a writer, or you are a writer, not just a writer, that short film calling card is probably not going to be able to show off everything you can do. Because in 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can only really show a bit of a window into your ability as a writer. It's a good form, but it's not the best. So synopsis, logline, scripts are better for you. But if you are a writer/director, great calling card. Because what the world wants is to find the next great voice, the next great authentic voice, locally and internationally. And the short film does it. They watch it, they're either into it or not, and they can say, yes, I want to invest in you in your next step. So bizarrely, they're still an amazing opportunity.
I just remembered I forgot 2 funds. So Rautaki also has Heara, which is a business pathways pool of money. You have to have a company to apply for that funding, and you have to be either Māori or Pacific Island descent to access that fund, and that's up to 50k. We usually have about 3 production companies that we fund out of that, and sometimes we make the fund go further by splitting it into supporting business development, because we want to see sustainable business practices, and how you do that in terms of Aotearoa and how you manage to grow your business. So we're really interested in that space. It just closed, and I'm actually reading the applicants now. And the other fund is the Tuhunga Reo Māori Fund, which is probably going to change a little bit, but at the moment it's supporting writers that actually write in real Māori. Because many of our films are even though they end up being translated, they are written in English. So we're trying to encourage our Māori writers to write in reo. And we have a few, but we'd like to see more. So those are our other 2 funds. I think that's all.
So just to wrap up this part, and then we'll get your questions, because I'm aware we're running out of time. So if you think of it like this, and this slide here that you would see on the screen, but you can't, but I can see it, and it's a very good slide, has 5 kind of door hangers, or 5 areas, right? So just Imagine that, five different categories. The first one, we're not really involved in the delivery event of that, and that is really around the industry, like tertiary education, industry wide kind of programs. We do fund the guilds and industry organisations to run them, but we're not directly involved. We might come and do this at a script event or a screening event or whatever, but we're not kind of involved in that. So that's door one, if you like. Funded by us sometimes, or it's about connecting with the sector. And for us, with tertiary and with those training providers, we're not formally involved in that at all, because that's obviously Ministry of Education funded and all of that. But we are interested in that kind of pipeline of those pathways that people come out of. The second one is talent, which is where we're working across. How do we support people's progression, individual grants, opportunities to make stuff, to learn on the job. The third one is development, so the development of your ideas, of your IP. Talking about Tuhinga Reo, the Māori fund. We've got early development funding, we've got documentary development funding. We also have Writers Guild run seed funding, which is a fund that we provide, which is for first drafts. So they have 2 rounds a year. You think our odds are bad, 117 applications for 6. Their odds are like 100, 200 applications for 2. So it's just ridiculous. But anyway, that's not their fault. It's just a finite amount of money and everyone wants to write a film. So, but that's seed funding, so that's development funding. And then the fourth door is production, making stuff. So short films in our area of the talent progression, but in Te Rautaki and the development and production team, that's the feature films. So we have a feature film fund where you can come in, the bar's pretty high as you can imagine. You've got to have market partners, distributors, other financiers, depending on how much money you want. We have a cap of up to $2 million. Te Rautaki have a $2.5 million cap on their feature. But it's generally $2 million the Film Commission can contribute. Most films in New Zealand are not made for $2 million. We can't 100% fund a feature film. I think you have to have 10% of market money, or non-government money. So you couldn't really have NZ on air money because that's government money, so you've got to find it somewhere else. Normally in the market, distributors, financiers. It's been at AFM recently, hustling, trying to find cash. So it's a hustle to raise that extra money that you have to have. And then the fifth door, we are involved with maybe funding individuals in the space, or doing a lot of work with other agencies and organisations around the world. And that is the kind of international reach or global reach role that we have. Supporting filmmakers to get their films out there to festivals, and we fund people to go to their premiere if they get into a major festival. But also, like we've just supported through Te Rautaki 4 Wahine Māori filmmakers, 2 doco, 2 drama. They're going to go to Berlin next year at the EFM, the European Film Market. And they're on a whole program of kind of mentorship and development of their projects, where they go to this European market at the end of that development process to meet market partners and try and find that money that I was just talking about. So we do those kind of one-off or those bespoke things as and when they come up. A lot of that comes from our relationships, going to festivals or meeting people at development labs and going, oh, this is a great opportunity. Can we link in with that? And one local one, obviously you may have heard Jane Campion has done a film school or a pop-up kind of film intensive, she calls it. I did turn up one time and we were doing a dream workshop and I was like, this is unbelievable, I love this. And the next time they were doing yoga and I was like, we didn't fund it, but I was like, yeah, this is a film school I could get on board with. So she's run that, Netflix completely funded that, which is amazing. But we did come on board because she said, look, there's 4 people, they had 300 odd applications. There's 4 people that we think are probably not at the right level for this. They're a little bit above, and we want to give them some support. Can you, like, we're going to get Netflix to stump up a bit more money. Can you match it dollar for dollar? You put in 30K, they put in 30K, and actually make it a development program for feature writers, basically, alongside the 10 filmmakers that were at the pop-up. So we thought, well, that's a bit of a no-brainer. So we did that. So these opportunities just pop up out of the blue. Sometimes you think that's too good to turn up. So we do have those opportunities. Sometimes they're really widely publicised, and sometimes they just come like that, where Jane has already done a massive application process, 307 people applied, and she's found these 4 extra people and gone, I don't want to let them go. So that's where you might hear about things and go, how did that happen? That's kind of how it happens. Someone has a good idea and you go, yeah, that sounds good. I think we've covered all of our funding. Yeah. As Kath did say earlier, and I think I mentioned, obviously budgets are tight at the moment, going to get tighter. We're facing funding reduction from both of our sources. We get it from Ministry of Culture and Heritage and a percentage of the lottery profits. And both of those have indicated that it's going down. Lottery is going down anyway, lottery profits are going down. Yeah, don't get me started on why we're getting profits from lottery. Morally, that doesn't sit well, but that's the system we've got at the moment. But both of those forms of money are going down. So we will have less money available in the next year or two. We anticipate, at least that changes. Doesn't mean we won't have funding. It's just there may be initiatives that you have heard of even today that we may not be able to run next year, or might sound a bit different. But here's hoping we still have Te Rautaki and talent development grants to give out. Hope that's useful. We've talked a lot. We're going to stop now. Any questions? Burning questions for Kat? Yes.
Pātautaki. Tō tai ngā mihi korua mō tō awhina mō tō mahi tēnei ata. My question is in regards to putting together a treatment or a grant application. What are some of those things that when you see it you go, yeah, that's wicked, or kaore te toi?
A really good log line, and then a really good synopsis. And writing a good log line is a skill. Encapsulating what your film is about in 2 sentences is a real skill. But look, we don't make snap decisions. If the log line's not great, we'll read the synopsis before reading the script. As Dale said, sometimes you read the writer's notes to see where their head's at with the story, whether they think they've got a lot of work to do, whether they think they're sweet. And if they think they're sweet and they're just not, that's always a little bit of a
red flag.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Not really. Red flag. But I read a lot of scripts because, I didn't say this, but I read any script that comes in that has Māori content in it. That will go, that sort of ranges from a setting, because of course many of our films are set in Aotearoa, and looking at locations and what the story's about and whether there's a consultation process that needs to take place, or and then there's, if people have characters, what their backstories are, whether they sit appropriately within the story, because often Māori characters, as I've said, are thrown in there to brown up the screen, but you're actually thinking, well, why are they Māori? Why do they need to be Māori? Why is their character involved? And sometimes it's just fine, but other times it's like, oh, not another drunk, not another security guard, not another hello. So there is, we do kind of, we just look at what our people are, how our people are depicted, and it's not to say we don't want people that are just like amazing doctors and saving lives. We want our people represented right across the spectrum, from good characters to bad characters, to characters that are conflicted all the time, not just a happy domestic worker or a cleaner. So I guess the short answer is we look at the writer, we look at their vision, we look at the team that they've got around them, if there is a team, and who they think their film is for. Because if you don't know who your audience is, then we're not sure that we know either. And in the film industry, it's all about basically thinking, someone's going to pay $20 to come and see my film, why do they want to do that?
Yeah.
And where it might be really important to you, I think the story that's being told, sometimes the story needs to be made either more, sometimes with our Māori stories too, because we assume that everybody knows this, is that, and that's what we're doing currently with Ka Whawhai, is how do we make this, if it's playing in Italy, how do we broaden the story out, giving just a little bit more information so that no one in the audience is sitting there going, what the heck is going on for these people? You know, so that's often our challenge as Māori, and I think for maybe New Zealanders as a whole too, sometimes as we sit in a very particular place. But, and that's part of our role too, is make sure that our stories are accessible to international audiences, as well as, of course, it makes sense to our own people. So if they don't make sense to your own people, then...
Great answer, Kath. I was going to talk of the log line. One thing I notice in short film applications is we use the log line all the time. So we use it as a heading, like we've got the title and the log line with all the others when we're sitting going, okay, where are we at in our decision-making thinking at the moment? So it's sitting there all the time. It's reminding you of that story. So that's why it is really important. And then subsequently, when you're out in festivals, your log line often is in that key kind of area in the, it's not, is it Film Freeway now? What's it called? Yeah, I used to use Without a Box. No one knows what that was called. But it's the same thing. It sits in that Film Freeway line in that kind of that catalogue of that film. So it's so important, you know. So really, really learning how to do those and developing those skills is really important. What I would say for general applications, so I've done a lot. I worked as an artist in theatre and then in film for many, many moons. And I did a course in the UK when I was living in Scotland at one point, and it was a light bulb moment for me. It was a creative industries course. And they basically just broke down applications and said, okay, one thing we've got to watch in the creative industries is we tend to answer every question we're asked with the why we want to do it. So it doesn't really matter what the question is they ask, what is the film you're making? Your why comes out in the answer. And you'll know if you've done this when you read back the answers to all the questions and you feel like you've already answered it. You're answering this question and you go, fuck, I feel like I've answered it. Sorry, didn't swear. Stop it. You know, 2 or 3 questions before you go, hang on, it feels like I've already answered that. That means it's going to your passion part, which is what we're driven as creative people to do. So really good exercises to go through the questions quite unemotionally before you get into it and go, what is that question asking? Is it a what question? What are you doing? Just tell me what you're doing. Don't tell me why. Don't tell me how passionate you are about that story. Just tell me it's a 10-minute short film. It's dramatic. It's set here. Whatever. The why question will be there, of course. Go for gold. You've only got 500 words or 300 words. The how question. Often the how question is in the director's treatment. How's it going to look? How's it going to feel? The tone, Often director's treatment come back with, but it's my story. I don't want to know that now. I want to know how. How am I going to be affected by it because you're going to use this palette or this music or whatever. Right. So, and then the when. When's it set? When's it happening? When are you bringing that community together? Whatever it is. It's just a really simple exercise to do on the application form. Back in the day when there weren't digital application forms, you could actually print it out. I think you can probably still do that with ours, but just write it on the question. This is a what, this is a why, this is a when, this is a how. Because when you're writing your answer, you look back up and go, have I answered the what? I think I've veered back into the why. I do it myself all the time.
The other thing too is remember that the assessors can only go on what you've put in your application. Absolutely. So if you're thinking, you're writing something and you're thinking, oh yeah, and then we're going to have this really amazing bit, and then that's going to happen, and then that's going to, but you don't put it in your application, then the assessors just go on what's in front of them. So put the process that you're involved in, put why you're doing things in, and we hope to go with them. If you're going to consult a particular community around a character and their journey, put that into the application. Just remember, we can only go on what is actually in it. And I know there's limits now, word limits, so you probably want to write them a few times, but just don't leave anything out. That's important. Sometimes people put a whole lot of stuff in, it's not so important. But then they'll leave out, and you'll talk to them afterwards and go, and they'll tell you something, and you'll go, why don't you put that in the application? That clears, like for example, even identifying that your main character is Māori. We had a panel recently, and I started it off with saying, well, you know, Bob, who's in it, he's actually Māori, and the international and the local person just went, oh, that makes sense now. We never thought about it like that before. So actually, that's what your script is for as well, is to actually have those little notes within that script. So that's not even in the application. That's actually in your script direction.
I have a question here, but one other thing to add before that. Certainly from a talent and I would say Te Rautaki team point of view, I encourage people when applying to get in touch, obviously with the Film Commission, for any team, get in touch before you come in. It's always good to have a conversation. They can't read their work, they can't kind of give you an assessment, but you can build a relationship and they can kind of guide you. Now's a good time to come in, maybe now's not, or let's hear where the project's at, maybe that's not the right fund for you. So really encourage you. And CNZ, Creative New Zealand, exactly the same. Get in touch, NZ on air, absolutely. There shouldn't be a barrier to actually getting the access to the information. That's my whole Kōpere of being in the Film Commission, is to try and demystify it as much as I can. So get in touch early. The one thing with Te Rautaki and talent development, because we deal with a lot of individual grants as well, there might be a way in which we can guide you in a way that is slightly different. But also, I do encourage people, certainly in the short film level, if you're coming in for Fresh or Catalyst, it's okay to put the elephant in the room in the application. We don't know how we're going to do this yet. We want to get a mentor. We don't have the contacts. We're really keen on, can you help us? You know, I've worked in documentary all my life. You know, I've made amazing documentaries, but I want to work with actors, and this is my first chance to do that at a Fresh Shorts level. And I want to work with an acting coach. I don't know any. You know, I'm looking for names and support, but I'm reaching out to local theatre groups or whatever it may be. Or I've identified some people, and if you could help, you know, we'd love to link up with them. Because that shows, because otherwise, as Kath said, we can only assess what's on the paper and the prop. And sometimes something happens in the subconscious where people are nagging and thinking, hang on, I'm not sure they can do this. They maybe aren't even consciously aware of what it is. There's just something nagging. Whereas you mention it, we can talk about it. Yeah? So put it in there, front and centre. Okay, this question is, why on applications can producers not come in, it can't be directors as well and vice versa. So you can't come in as a director-producer. We get this question a lot. And also the transfer of rights. So why do we have to transfer the rights? I'll take it to the producer. So at all levels, so short film and feature film, we have a rule around you can't be the producer and the director. The short is really reflecting the requirements for EDF and then feature film, so that's kind of why that's in that place. Hasn't always been that way, and it is up for debate constantly. We talk about it. It's not trying to restrict people, it's actually trying to encourage building of teams. Because from my experience of feature films, you cannot, and I don't care who you think you are, you cannot actually physically produce a feature film with a budget. A micro budget is completely different, but with a budget, you can't do that, produce it and direct it at the same time at key stages. There are key moments when you should be in the market finalising your finance, and you should be meeting with your head of departments. Like literally closing the finance is one of the most complicated things to do in a feature film. It's getting all the jigsaw pieces together on the same day, so contractually you can close and draw down all that money. Otherwise you as a producer are legally liable for the interest and all sorts of other things that happen if you don't do that day. And yet at the very same time, you should creatively be driving that waka. So that is a real conflict. Now, some more experienced directors and producers are credited in that way, but they're not sitting there in that finance room at that time. They're actually off doing the creative. So that's probably why that's been set up back in the day. What has changed recently is that directors and writers can come in for early development funding now without a producer. And for the first tranche, and that is to do with not wanting to force writers and directors to have to sign over their IP at too early in a stage to a producer that may not be the right producer for them in their journey. So that got changed, I think, a year or so ago after consultation with the industry. All of this is up for, ours are guidelines only. They're not actual rules and regs, and you have to stick to it. So you can, through SPARTA, the Producers Guild, or the Directors Guild, or the Writers Guild, raise these concerns as a community, and then they can come back to us and we can look at it. They all have ramifications. If you change one thing, you might have to look at the other thing over the years. But that's the situation at the moment. The transfer of rights is a big one, especially at the shorts level, and feature level. And what you need to remember is that basically the public money has to go to someone, and they have to be legally responsible for delivering that back to the public funder, i.e. us or NZ On Air or anyone. So that's why they need the rights assigned to them. So they have the right to make the film and deliver it back for the public money. They also have to have the right so they can sell it internationally to a distributor, someone who's going to then sell it around the world. That does not mean you as the writer or the director can't be a part of the parent company that own the rights of that IP. So a writer-director, for example, could be a co-owner of a company, Company X up here, that then has the parental responsibility for that project. The project sits with another company, which is SPV, answerable to the parent. They make the film, and then they deliver it back to the parent. So writer-directors around the world are doing this more and more and more, becoming co-owners of the parent company. Just be aware, the more ownership you have, the more risk you have, as well as the more autonomy. So you want to be a part of that IP, absolutely brilliant. But when things go wrong, and they can go wrong, they can be rather costly. So, and what you want to do is find a team that you want to work with that you can trust. One bit of advice from Jude, our colleague in the talent development team, is if you meet someone and you have a first meeting with them and you get an inkling, you get a feeling it's not quite right, that's the time to get out, because them and you are on your best behaviour at that point. And it's probably going to only get worse. So if you have that in your stomach, just politely say thanks for the coffee, or pay for the coffee yourself.
The other slightly complicating thing is if you are telling a story that is not necessarily your own story, and that's what often happens with Indigenous storytellers, is that we have to go to the committee or the hapu, or so. And I would say, yeah, absolutely, it's always challenging to fit into a Western model to actually get our stories told, but there are ways to do that, and like as with everything, that is what a good Māori IP lawyer can actually do for you. So, and there are a few specialists now, so I would encourage people who are going along that path to actually, and you know, even if you don't engage the lawyer, but actually engage in the thinking that we don't actually have to follow the same singular IP route that others are following, that there are alternative ways, and it will be by our people changing it that I think the model will eventually become changed, but we're on a journey.
And contracts are never easy, are they? We've got a question here, but contracts are never easy because they feel really over the top and whatnot, but the amount of times I see, even at short film level, where, and I've done it myself, you know, you're working with a mate and you're having a great time, and then you get to a point where it's not, maybe you haven't had a big falling out, you just think, actually, we're going to part ways. And it gets complicated because it's like, well, who owns what bit of that? Like, you wrote it, but then we spent a year developing that thing. Where does my IP and your IP sit? And if you're good mates and you can work it out, you know, great. But sometimes you can't. And I'm aware of a couple of projects just recently, independent ones, just, I know the people, and they're in a bit of a mess now. And it's like, well, neither can kind of make it without offending the artists. Like, so just something basic at the beginning that says, here's our deal, I'm the writer, you're the director, you're the producer, I own the IP, we're going to get actors in a workshop, but actually it's still my IP, I'm holding on to it, and here's what I agree to you, that I'm not going to use your storyboards or your whatever it may be, just to keep yourself, because contracts are terrible at the beginning, but when the crap hits the fan, they're really useful. We're going, hang on, we agreed this. This is our exit strategy, because that's the only time they're really useful. There are some templates out there, Writers Guild, Directors Guild have some templates, I think, and some of the lawyers have done them for short films. I've done a pack of ones where they'll, like for $500, they'll give you all of the contracts, and you have to adjust them, but it's quite useful rather than spending $500 an hour. I'm sorry, you had a question.
Thank you. Is it a possibility that you could go straight to catalyst funding if you don't have a strong track record based on the strength of your project? Yes. He says out loud. Yes. So it is at the emerging to mid-career level. So if you're an emerging or mid-career professional in the wider arts sector, theatre, music, whatever, that might work. What I would say is, because there's only, this year there's only 4, but normally 6 grants at $100+ grand, all our heads are on the block a little bit in terms of, you know, if it doesn't work. The irony is, I shouldn't say this out loud, but
Oh, stop recording. Sometimes the 10, 20 or 30 grand shorts do better than the 100 grand shorts at major festivals, and I sit there going, holy heck. But you just don't know what's going to land. But no, at Catalyst level, the bar is, what I would say is for the director of that short, it's probably harder for a director who hasn't directed at a certain level or had some runs on the board. Writer, absolutely, because they're going to read the script, love the project, and if you've got a director who's got some runs on the board, you go, yeah, great, this is brilliant. And obviously the producer will have to be someone who can look after 100 grand plus sort of public money. But yeah, so that's where you might stumble if you haven't got those runs on the board. And what I would say is then you just go, okay, well that's my issue, how do I get over that? That's the elephant. What if I go and shoot some test scenes with some really good actors and get some amazing performance where the question in the mind is, aesthetically it looks great, here's my mood board, it looks amazing, the script's brilliant, can that person elicit the performance they need for that film to really resonate with an audience? Hell, they've got a test shoot, which they haven't spent thousands on, it's a studio-based thing, but they've got amazing performances. Because let's be honest, short films, the aesthetic is interesting for an audience, but the things that move them, the performance first and foremost, if there's bad performances or performances that don't feel authentic, we switch off straight away, and then it's the window to the world. It's the window to the, oh, I haven't seen this before, I don't know what, I haven't gone on this journey before. Then it's aesthetic, then it's, the production values and all of that. When you shoot the beautiful shots, all the beautiful shots we like, but if that performance isn't there and that authentic story and unique world viewers in there, they just don't break through. Because there's thousands, 13,000 shorts were submitted to Sundance last year. I think 15,000 to Berlin. So that's who you're up against. It's like, holy heck, that's a lot of stories. But yeah, good question. Yeah.
Guys, we'll have one more question before we wrap up.
Oh yeah.
But we are appearing afterwards on a one-to-one. Aren't we sure?
Yes, we're still around, so we can still,
They're still around.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We have another panel at 11 o'clock, but Tia and Kathryn will be here till 12.
Yeah,
My question is, well, since I'm originally from the States and I've been doing a lot of acting so I'm friends with a lot of Maori people, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but if I'm making a film, I'm wondering about the content and how much consulting is needed. Like, say I've written a film, and the location, my friend said we can film at their place. It's across the street from a marae, and the marae is keen to be involved to do the blessing, and if they want to do some food. And I've got this Maori actress friend who I think would be great as the detective character. But if I'm submitting it, so there's Maori involved, but it's not a Maori story. Do I have to get a lot of consulting for that?
Well, it really depends on the story, and what you're describing is very much what we get a lot. Is that you are utilising the local marae for, like any other business, to provide a cultural safe space for your production, for example, by having karakia or and feeding your actors, maybe providing hospitality, that sort of level. If your character, if something happens to the character that is that reflects sort of te ao Māori, then you would have to have consultation with either someone who's embedded, and I would say if you're going down that road, then you need to have a Māori embedded within your creative group, whether it's a writer or a consultant or a local kaumātua or kuia, someone that actually can assist you to tell a better story.
Right.
But if you are telling a story where it's an urban character, they are just doing their job and they're not necessarily, they're Māori and they're identified as such, then as long as they are a great character, if they have some reo or if they have some way of distinguishing themselves as a Māori, then include it. But
I read scripts all the time where their characters are Māori, and they may communicate in the reo in some way, or they may do something that's very Māori, but the story itself is not a Māori story.
Right.
So it's just distinguishing and your actors. But if you've got someone embedded quite early within your process, especially your writing process, then it should be tuturu, it should work. But what we see a lot is people are up to their 10th draft or whatever and come in for advanced development funding and they still haven't talked to anybody.
Right.
And we're still going, this character hasn't really developed at all since the last time you told us you were going to develop them and have a Māori writer on board. So I would just say to everybody is embed Māori within if you want to tell a story that is authentic and representative, and I don't just mean cultural stories, but just characters that have resonance.
Right.
And that someone a Māori watching go, oh yeah, it's like my uncle, it's just exactly like that dude,
Yeah.
then that's what we're talking about. Not everybody doesn't have to be doing, whai kōrero and be embedded in their culture as such, but you do have to write real characters, just like any other character. Kia ora, I hope that helps.
One thing I'll add to that is we've just supported a new initiative called around accessibility coordinators, which is around supporting the industry, the screen sector, crew and cast to support accessibility needs and requirements for people. And it's a very new role. It's been around in the UK for about a year or two, and they just came to Australia and we supported 3 people to go over and do the training for a week, and they've just come back, and we're looking at how we roll that out across the industry and support the industry in that way. And when I was listening to what Kath was saying in reference to your question, I thought one of the things, because one of the questions someone had at a conference recently was, but how do I know what accessibility needs are required, And actually, one thing from that training was a learning for me and a lot of other people is that people with accessibility needs have been adjusting for this their entire life. Whether it's new to them or whether it's been from the beginning, whether it's a physical disability like in a wheelchair or whether it's a cognitive challenge they've got, they are adjusting for that all the time, and not unlike a Māori actor is adjusting for certain things all the time, or a crew member. And so one of the things I talk with Kath around is actually, if you have Māori content, Māori characters, providing a consultant or someone in your creative team that is there and that's their role, it's not the actor's role. Because the amount of actors that are put on the spot, on a shoot, going, oh, you know what, we're just going to have we're having a little tangi in this TV show and we just need you to, can you just kind of guide us through it? That actor is hired as an actor who happened to be Māori. They may not feel comfortable in that space. So you're really putting them on the spot. So I really encourage everyone in every way, when on the authentic storytelling, you should do it because you get a better story. And we know that resonates with audiences. So that's the reason to do it, if nothing else. But actually, from supporting your cast and crew perspective, having someone that's looking after that for them, creating that safe space for us, whatever area you're talking about, is really, really useful kaupapa to adopt. And if you can bring it into the development phase, even better, because it means it's more authentic at the other end. So it sounds like, you're engaging well and just...
I know, but I'm just like, if I don't get funding, then we'll do this super cheaply, and then it might cost a lot more money to get.
Well, from mine, our budgets are tiny anyway. But yeah, I know if you're doing it on your own, it's friends and family and it's favours and everything. But all of this stuff is an exchange of some kind. I really want you on board because you're the right person to give me this cultural safety, and we can give you this in return. This is the exchange we've got. This is the creative and the human exchange we're making. And it's certainly at the short film level, we might be giving you some pūtea, but that exchange is more important. Yeah. Yes?
Just a quick question on authenticity of script. Have you encountered any AI-generated scripts for? Is it helpful to use AI to help down for what's your impression?
According to the government, we don't have an opinion. No, I'm not making that up. We don't, because it's come up recently with a couple of rounds where we've said, some external partners that you've said, oh, we need to make a statement about AI, whether we're not going to accept scripts or mood boards or whatever. And it's actually very complicated because what form of AI are you not accepting? Like autocorrect is an AI. So it's going to be full of mistakes. I mean, that's ridiculous, of course. But generative AI is a big conversation worldwide, as we know, with the strikes and stuff. As far as I understand, our ministry and ultimately our new government now will have to take an opinion on this and then guide us. I know this Variety Skill just with their latest run of Seed, I think they said we will not accept scripts that have been generated by or created by generative AI. I don't quite know how they know, but I think universities have had to tackle this for a while now.
There's always someone who will run it through an AI generator and run another AI generator to reformat it so it doesn't sound like ChatGPT, for example.
Yeah.
So it's a cat and mouse.
There'll be a business in how do I write a shoddy film AI to make it look like I didn't do AI. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of research, a lot of what I am seeing in the visual and in the story-based space, a lot of creatives in the industry are out there utilising these tools to research, which is interesting part of the conversation. It's just worrying on certain levels, Yeah.
We don't have it. We're going to wrap up the session now. I just want to say a big thank you to Dale and Kathryn from the Film Commission. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and we look forward to further collaborations.